Divine Indifference. By Orthoris. Chapter 17. Luna. You're doing well, hold the spell just a little longer, Atlas said to Celestia. Celestia was currently being taught magic by Atlas. Since they had just started out, the only spell she knew was levitation. The spell was usually the first one that was taught to young unicorns, due to its simplicity and low mana requirement. Celestia on her part had taken to the spell rather fast and was now trying to keep a 10-pound weight at a level height for 5 minutes. Her face reflected how focused she was on the task, her tongue screwed out of the side of her mouth slightly in concentration. She was most likely reaching the limits of her current mana pool and starting to feel the strain. "All right, that's 5 minutes, you can let go now," Atlas said with a smile. Celestia instantly cancelled her spell and let out a breath she had been holding, her breath ragged. Atlas caught the weight before it could fall to the ground and put it back on a nearby workstation. "How are you feeling?" "Like I've been running really far," Celestia answered between gasps of breath. "Also, empty, it kinda feels weird." "Ah, that's probably because you've spent almost all of your mana," Atlas explained. "I'm guessing this is the first time you've experienced this, remember the feeling well. If you're ever in a situation where you have to cast a lot of spells and you start feeling like this, it means that it's time to stop." "What happens if I don't?" Celestia asks with a tired face. "If you're lucky, you'll just pass out, if not, there might be some lasting damage to your mana pathways." "Okay, I'll keep that in mind." Atlas nodded, satisfied with Celestia's answer. "All right, I think now would be a good time to stop and make something to eat. What do you think?" "I'm starving," Celestia replied sluggishly while getting to her hooves. While Celestia made her way upstairs, Atlas looked around in order to locate Luna. Somewhere along the line he had lost eye contact with her, since she wandered all over the place now. Right now she could be hiding anywhere in the mess that was the main cave. "Luna!" Atlas called out, searching for a tuft of blue fur. "Where are you?" He was greeted with silence. The blue filly could have left the room for all he knew, but this time he was pretty sure she was just playing an impromptu game of hide and seek with him. Calmly, he started inspecting each of the workstations, methodically rooting out any possible hiding spaces. Come out, wherever you are," Atlas said while moving some boxes away from the wall. "You can run, but you can't hide," he added with a playful voice. Just as he was about to check under the third workstation, a tiny sneeze could be heard from behind him. Immediately he spun around facing the direction the sound had come from. Right now, he was thankful for his big pony ears, since they made pinpointing sounds a lot easier than human ears. They made it easy enough to locate Luna's hiding spot amongst the mess that was workstation number 6. An incredibly suspicious pile of boxes, just big enough to hide a small filly from sight, was stacked right next to it. And, sure enough, some of Luna's blue fluffy tail was peeking out from behind it. "Oh, I wonder where you could be," Atlas feigned while he carefully approached the hiding spot. "There you are." Atlas levitated away the stack of boxes to reveal a shocked filly looking straight at him. The shock quickly gave way to mirth and Luna started giggling happily as Atlas picked her up in his magical field and pulled her close to him. "Papa!" she called out while she was coming closer, stretching her little hooves out for a hug. Contrary to her expectations, Luna abruptly stopped halfway to her goal. Atlas had scrunched up his muzzle, now it was his turn to be shocked. Luna had been babbling mostly nonsense until now, even with the occasional odd word. Maybe this was just a coincidence, two sounds strung together by accident. He was probably overthinking this. "Papa?" Luna asked with a confused look, tilting her head slightly. Definitely not a coincidence. Atlas' head was spinning, as he didn't really know how he was supposed to process this information. Luna seemed to think that Atlas was her father for some reason. Sure, she had been here now for some time, but it wasn't too long since she had last seen her actual father. Was the memory capacity of a foal really that bad? Where had she even learned that word from? Maybe Celestia? Well, for now, there wasn't really anything he could do to clear up this misconception. He'd just have to make sure she knew the truth when she was capable of understanding. Until then, maybe playing along wouldn't be so bad. Atlas put the finishing touches on the lavish breakfast he was preparing. For this special occasion he prepared a full spread for brunch. After all, it was Luna's 5th birthday. The two sisters had now been with Atlas for almost 4 years and had settled in just fine. Celestia had calmed down quite a bit and seemed to have mostly moved on from the loss of her parents, even though she still seemed to be affected by it sometimes. Luna, on the other hand, was as happy-go-lucky as could be. She still called Atlas father, even though he had already tried to clear up that misunderstanding many times now. Either she just didn't understand, or opted to just not care. Most likely she didn't have a single coherent memory of her real parents remaining, and for all intents and purposes, Atlas was the real deal. Celestia wasn't too happy about it and usually didn't look too happy every time Luna called Atlas father or dad. She didn't stop or correct Luna though, so she seemed tolerant of the situation. He could hear a small set of hooves approaching from behind him as he reminisced about the past few years and turned around. "Daddy, what are you doing?" Luna asked while she rubbed the sleep out of her eyes with her fetlock. "Making a special breakfast for a special filly," Atlas answered back, picking her up with his magic and setting her down on his back. She still loved getting a ride on Atlas's back, which reminded him of how Discord used to be back in the day. "After all, it's your birthday today." "It is?" Luna asked, her eyes growing wide, suddenly wide awake. "Don't tell me you forgot your own birthday," Atlas asked with a chuckle, setting her down in her usual chair at the table. Their dinner table was already filled with all the goodies one might need for a successful brunch, such as pancakes, maple syrup, a variety of breads and things to put on them, cereal, scrambled eggs and a vegetable stew. On second thought, Atlas had to declare this brunch a complete failure and an utter disgrace to brunches everywhere, since there was no bacon present. He wouldn't tell that to Luna, though. "I don't know when it is, so how could I remember?" Luna asked with a squeaky and slightly offended voice. "Well, I do, and it's today," Atlas replied, turning around to put the finishing touches on the eggplant piccata he was making. "Does that mean I'll get presents?" Luna asked excitedly through a mouthful of pancake. Yes it does," Atlas smiled. "Also, try to swallow before you talk." Atlas brought over the platter of eggplant and set it on a free spot on the table before sitting down as well, starting to load a little bit of everything on his plate. "What's going on?" A sleepy voice could be heard from behind. "It's Luna's birthday, so we're having brunch," Atlas said while turning around to face Celestia, who had a glorious case of bed hair. "Come join us." Celestia sniffed the air a few times, the smell of food apparently helping to speed up the process, before making her way over to the table and plopping herself down in her usual spot. "Happy birthday, Luna," Celestia said with a happy smile on her face. "Thanks," Luna replied around a mouthful, her muzzle caked with food crumbs. Celestia shook her head at her sister's terrible table manners and started loading up her plate as well. Her magic training had been proceeding smoothly, and levitation was like second nature to her now. Her affinity for orange mana, the school of energy, allowed her to become proficient at spells relating to recognizing, categorizing, and manipulating the mana around her. Although Atlas noticed that the color of her magical signature was slowly changing color, from the usual orange to something more akin to yellow, or maybe gold. This change was highly unusual, as well as the first time Atlas heard of this happening, so he was unsure what that meant, but since it was more in line from what he knew about future Celestia, he didn't pay it much mind. Luna had also begun her training in the magic arts, displaying an uncanny talent for illusion spells, concurrent to her affinity to blue mana. Atlas kind of wished that Star Swirl was still here, since he'd be a way better teacher for this than Atlas was. Alas, Luna had to make do with Atlas's limited knowledge, although she didn't seem to mind at all. "I've got a little present for you as well," Celestia said in between 2 bites of hay fries. "I'll give it to you after we're done eating." "Guess I'll give her my present then as well," Atlas added. "Cool. I can't wait." As if to prove her words, Luna began to eat even faster, which Atlas previously thought impossible. Bits and pieces of food started flying everywhere as the various foodstuff fell prey to the blue glutton. Where all the food went to, Atlas had no clue, but he felt like it was dangerous to even think about it. "Now, slow down a little," Atlas reprimanded her. "It'll still be your birthday even if you take your time eating. It's also unhealthy to not properly chew your food, you know the thing I tell you every day." "You've sure bo," Luna replied, mouth still full, still shoveling in even more. Atlas sighed and accepted that he probably never would get through to her on this topic. To be honest, if food wasn't literally walking in through the front door on a daily basis, he was sure that Luna would have eaten him into bankruptcy by now. He would have to thank Discord whenever he got the chance. Thankfully, the sisters believed his lie that he simply set up some complex counterspell that held the chaos at bay and didn't ask more questions relating to its complete absence in the cave. Luna pretty much emptied the table herself, which again, baffled Atlas, and started impatiently waiting for Celestia and Atlas to finish. In a rare moment of adult responsibility, Atlas took his sweet time finishing, finding amusement in Luna's pseudo-suffering. Celestia either didn't care or simply tried to imitate Atlas in an attempt to appear like a responsible big sister. Matter of fact, she was very responsible for her age, but still barely 10 years old. Eventually, they both finished eating, which made Luna really excited. Atlas took this as the perfect opportunity to clean up. Luna had made a right mess of the table, and the dishes needed to be washed anyway, wouldn't want the dirt to dry out, making everything harder to clean. Since Luna's birthday was today, she didn't have to help, and Celestia and Atlas went about their cleaning tasks at a sedate pace. By the time the eating area and the kitchen was perfectly clean, Luna was close to exploding from excitement and impatience. While she reminded Atlas of some sort of hyper-energetic dog on speed, he hoped she wouldn't literally explode. By all rights, after inserting so much food into her small body, physically she should be dead thrice over by now. "All right, are you ready for your presents?" Atlas asked, smiling as he definitely knew the answer. "Yes." Luna exploded into action, running up and down the living room a few times before bodily throwing herself on the couch, where she looked at the two of them expectantly, barely able to hold still. "Definitely a dog." Atlas and Celestia shared a look with each other before the both of them went to retrieve their respective presents. Atlas came back out of his room, next to him levitating a neatly wrapped present, which was bigger than himself, and seemed to be some sort of connected tubes of varying sizes. Celestia was already back and sitting next to Luna on the couch, the blue filly hungrily eyeing a small wrapped box on the coffee table before her. Atlas set down his present next to the table and joined the sisters on the couch. "Why don't you open up your sister's present first?" Atlas asked, enjoying the familial scene unfolding before him. He truly felt like the two were like his real daughters by now, belonging to Atlas's weird jumbled family. Contrary to her obviously excited emotional state, Luna carefully picked up the small box off the table and looked towards Celestia. "Can I?" "Go ahead," Celestia gestured with her hooves. Celestia seemed somewhat excited as well, probably wondering how well received her present would be. Atlas had no idea what Celestia got for Luna, since she insisted on doing something for her sister by herself, so he was looking forward to seeing what she came up with. Showing off her fine control of her levitation spell, Luna unwrapped the present midair, a plain brown box appearing from under the wrapper. She pulled open the lid and pulled out what was resting within. A dark blue gem of sorts seemed to emerge from within. It was perfectly spherical and reflected the light passing through it in an odd way, making it seem like a pulsating glow resided deep within its depths. While Luna made an amazed face as she inspected the small stone, Atlas furrowed his brows in interest. At first glance, he had no idea what it was. "It's beautiful," Luna gasped, barely able to tear away her eyes from it to look at her sister. "What is it?" she asked curiously. "It's a stone of concentrated mana," Celestia said smugly. "I made it myself, especially for you." "Wow," Luna said slowly, returning to being mesmerized by the pulsating stone in front of her. Atlas, on the other hand, was dumbfounded. "Concentrated mana," he mouthed under his breath. The very idea seemed absurd, and as far as he could remember, he had never read or heard anything about something like this before. His immediate first thought was that this should be incredibly dangerous, since he knew that out-of-control mana tended to react rather violently. But this little stone seemed to be perfectly stable. "Celestia?" Atlas asked with a concerned voice. "Where did you learn how to do this?" "I came up with it myself," Celestia stated proudly, obviously happy about her success. "Came up with it herself," Atlas muttered in disbelief. "And nothing dangerous happened?" "No." Celestia hesitantly asked, now confused as to why she didn't earn immediate praise. "Look, I know I've told you this before, but creating new and unknown magic can be incredibly dangerous. You could have killed yourself by accident." Atlas reprimanded her. "I insist that you tell me the next time you do something like that, I'll be able to help you out." I just wanted to make something by myself for Luna," Celestia said, her eyes starting to water when she thought about the implications. "I'm sorry." "As long as you understand," Atlas said with a sigh. "That being said, I'm incredibly proud of you." Atlas changed his tune. "This is a completely new form of magic, you'll have to teach it to me as soon as you can." Atlas finished with a wink towards Celestia. Celestia simply energetically nodded her head, wiping away the tears that already started to form from her eyes. "Thank you." The smile Celestia displayed made him genuinely happy, and he nodded with satisfaction. Celestia only seemed responsible on the surface, while actually being incredibly impulsive on the inside. The only thing Atlas could do was to properly tutor her and hope for the best, but he was positive that she would eventually grow up to be a responsible mare. Luna didn't seem to register the small argument that just took place over her back, since she was still mesmerized by the gift she had received. Celestia smiled and fired up her horn, shooting a constant beam of magic into the gem before Atlas had a chance to stop her or ask what she was doing. Even when he just told her to think a bit more before she acted, she went ahead and did so anyway. As a result, the room was suddenly illuminated by flowing blue colors, ethereally floating through the room like waves. While they were busy oohing and eyeing at the scene unfolding before them, Atlas reached over Luna's back and lightly smacked Celestia over the head, who shot him an apologetic smile. "Incredible," Atlas said. "Truly incredible." "Thank you, sis." Luna suddenly shouted and hugged Celestia. "I love it." "You're welcome," Celestia said, hugging her sister back. "I love you," she added with a whisper into Luna's ear. They watched the blue wisps for a while longer before Celestia stopped her casting, subsequently stopping the impromptu show. Luna shot her a thankful smile and carefully put the stone back into its box and put it on the table. She looked at it appreciatively for a few more moments, before slowly turning her head towards the comparatively huge present still waiting for her. "Go ahead," Atlas simply said, prompting Luna to get up from the couch and stand next to the present. While it was almost intimidatingly tall compared to her, it was very skinny, and unwrapping it carefully looked like it would take quite some time, causing Luna to make a slightly dissatisfied face. Thankfully, Atlas had prepared for this, knowing about Luna's usual impatient nature. If Celestia was a bit of an impulsive filly, Luna was like a hyperactive idiot that just carelessly charged ahead regardless of consequences. Sometimes he was expecting her to break through the wall separating their bedrooms while shouting, "I'm the juggernaut, bitch," or "Ah yeah. There's a small bow on the tube right in front of you," Atlas explained. If you pull on it, the whole wrap will undo itself. Luna looked towards Atlas, a mile-wide grin spreading across her face, followed immediately by an energetic tug on the aforementioned bow. Just as promised, the wrap started falling away piece by piece, slowly revealing what was concealed below. Luna seemed to get more giddy with every piece slowly fluttering to the floor. Even if Atlas knew she was impatient, he intentionally made it that the wrap would peel away at an agonizingly slow pace, to increase the tension before the big reveal. It took a while, with Atlas mentally laughing all the way through, until the last big piece of wrapping paper undid itself, revealing Luna's present. Before her stood a state-of-the-art telescope. Cool! Luna shouted, jumping up and down excitedly, turning around to face Atlas. What is it? Atlas almost burst out laughing right there, but barely managed to restrict himself to an amused snort. It's a telescope, Luna. It helps you to see things that are very, very far away. That sounds incredible! Luna exclaimed, starting to circle the contraption before her. But what am I going to use it for? She added with a slight bit of confusion. Well, I made this myself, Atlas started to explain. I personally enchanted it, and even put some runes on it, so, you can see things that are really far away. Like, oh, I don't know. The stars in the night sky you love so much. Luna's head snapped into Atlas's direction so fast that he was worried she'd break something, her eyes growing wide. I can see the moon up close. Luna asked with bated breath. Yes, Luna, you'll be able to see as much of it as you want, Atlas said with a grin. Luna looked towards the balcony, finding it to be still light outside, a look of disappointment spreading across her face. She obviously wanted to try out her telescope as fast as possible, but there was no point staring at the sun with it, since she'd only turn herself blind. Ever since she'd moved in here, Atlas would always notice her admiring the night sky, whenever it was available, even before she could speak. He had spent many a night outside on the balcony with her, just watching, appreciating the stars high up above. Using a few books from his sizable library, he had taken to teaching her some astronomy, which she ate up like it was a brunch on her birthday. He considered his telescope to be the ultimate present for Luna and was sure she'd make ample use of it, but after seeing the amazing present Celestia had brought out, he wasn't so sure of himself anymore. Don't worry, Luna, you'll be able to test it out soon enough, Atlas said. Considering that the day/night cycle has been uncharacteristically consistent over the past few days, it should turn dark right about now. Just as Atlas finished his sentence, the sun outside careened towards the horizon, disappearing as if she owed the moon some money, as the white ball replaced it in the sky. Luna gasped and excitedly trotted in place for a few moments. Come on, I'll set it up for you, Atlas said as he got up from the couch, picking up the telescope in his magic. He walked out onto the balcony, Celestia and Luna following close behind him, one of them decidedly more excited than the other. Atlas set the telescope down at the edge of the balcony and aimed it roughly in the direction of the moon. He pulled one of the nearby chairs towards it, placing it so that Luna had easy access to the eyepiece. She immediately hopped on and was just about ready to smash her eyeball into the lens, when Atlas stopped her. Luna shot him an offended look as if he had just denied her water after walking through a desert. Now, before you rush in, I'll have to explain to you how it works, Atlas reprimanded. All right, I'm listening, the embodiment of impatience answered. Okay, since we're looking at something so far away, even small adjustments you make yourself will probably throw you off from what you're trying to look at, Atlas explained. That's what these knobs are for. Atlas pointed out a series of knobs that were attached to the telescope. If you turn them, you can make minuscule adjustments to the telescope, allowing you to slowly shift where you're looking at without ending up halfway across the galaxy. Oh, I get it. Luna said, surprised that she hadn't thought of that herself. Can I look through it now? Atlas chuckled and did a quick run through which knobs turned the telescope which way, and let her have at it after. Luna immediately glued her eye to the eyepiece, first making rough adjustments until she had zeroed in on the moon and then started to use her magic to turn the knobs. Her mouth was agape during the whole process and Atlas started to worry that she might forget to breathe, so he made sure to remind her. "Careful, if you forget to breathe, this might be the last time you can look at the moon," Atlas chuckled. Immediately Luna took a deep breath, seemingly remembering that breathing was in fact somewhat important, but refused to look away from what she was seeing through the telescope. They spent a while in silence, while Luna simply enjoyed looking at every nook and cranny of the moon that she could, until a small sniffle could be heard from her direction. Atlas looked in her direction with slight concern, fearing something was wrong. "Everything okay, Luna?" he asked tentatively. Luna slowly pulled her head away from the eyepiece, a magnificent circular imprint left behind around her eye socket, a stray tear already trickling down her cheek as she turned to look at Atlas. Celestia had a worried look on her face as well, concerned for her sister. A hiccup interrupted Luna's answer. "I love it so much, thank you, Daddy." Luna started straight up bawling at this point, leaping from the chair to hug Atlas, attaching to his neck in midair. Atlas could see Celestia wincing slightly at Luna's choice of words, but otherwise she was smiling, simply happy that her sister was too. "It's nothing," Atlas said. "You're very much welcome." As Atlas lovingly returned the heartfelt hug, a bright light started emanating all around them. Celestia seemed somewhat confused, while a shit-eating grin made its way on Atlas's face. Aside from simply wanting to make Luna happy, he had a somewhat ulterior motive with his gift, and it would seem like he was right on the money this time. Luna didn't even take notice of the anomaly as she was too busy hugging and crying to care. When the glow subsided, Celestia's eyes were glued to her sister's flank, as a brand new cutie mark was left behind in the light's wake. "Well, would you look at that," Atlas said. "Looks like there is one more birthday present for you." Luna's right ear twitched a few times as Atlas set her down on the floor, her crying being replaced by a look of confusion as she looked around for what Atlas meant. "Wah! Looks like you got your cutie mark, congratulations Luna!" Atlas exclaimed happily, pointing out her flank to her. Luna slowly turned her head around to take a look, and sure enough, there it was. A black blot had appeared on her flanks, a white crescent moon visible over it. It was obviously a representation of the moon in the night sky, and Luna took a while to appreciate what it looked like. Slowly her mind seemed to catch up to what had just happened and a smile started growing on her face. Together with her bloodshot eyes and tear-stained fur beneath them, it made for quite an interesting combination. She immediately latched onto Atlas again, this time laughing happily, her giggles filling the otherwise quiet night. Atlas enthusiastically returned the hug once again, waving Celestia over to join them in their moment of happiness, which she gladly accepted, joining in on the group hug. They remained like that for quite some time, happily chatting amongst themselves until the sun came up again and even later as it was replaced by the moon. While Atlas wasn't sure how or why it happened, but, the cave behind them, truly felt like home once more. A home he could share with his new family. Author's note: for some reason I had some issues writing the first part of this chapter. I'm already hardcore deviating from the originally planned chapters, adding a ton of shit, so I'm kind of ad-libbing even more than usual. Yet I feel this is necessary for the story to flow better, make the skips more bearable while still focusing on the important parts. Pretty sure that if I went the original path, you'd have come for my head by now, tongue sticking out. Once again, thanks to my editors Azriel and Alcatraz, as well as my proofreaders Kilobytes and Soren Mercer. Today's chapter was brought to you by this song. Come join us in the Discord channel. Lonk. Or the official Divine Entertainment Group. Divine Universe. End author's note.